Hello, everyone. Welcome back to LIVIN Fridays, where it's real talk, real people, and real change. No fancy edits, just an honest conversation about unlocking your potential and making a difference in this world. Let's face it, some Fridays feel like just another day. Sometimes they're epic. Well, what if they could be more consistently epic? What if they were about discovering your power, lighting up your passions, and making those waves of change? That's what we're all about here. That's the LIVIN philosophy, your no BS compass for personal growth and making a real impact. And we're keeping it raw and unfiltered, as seen by my edgy BS comment there, with the show, one take, just like life itself. So get comfy, grab some popcorn, because we have one of the best storytellers I've ever encountered on today's episode. And before we get to story time, let me embrace my inner educator and break down what LIVIN stands for, because it's way, way more than just a catchy phrase and one that's sort of kind of funny. And LIVIN starts where everyone should always start: listening. When you listen, you get real with yourself and those around you. What are your core values? What lights your fire? And true listening is also about understanding the needs of the communities you serve and finding those points of connection. The next step is Inquire. Curiosity is your superpower. Question norms, explore different perspectives, and examine your own assumptions, all with kindness and respect. It's the key to designing solutions that truly work. Next is validate. Self-acceptance and valuing others are a fuel for real progress. Embrace everyone's strengths, challenges, and unique experiences. When we see the whole picture, we build stronger strategies for change. And then it's time for action. We initiate. No more getting stuck in analysis mode. We're here for those brave steps that align with your values and goals, big or small, because each step builds your confidence to overcome those what if fears. Last is navigate. We know life isn't smooth sailing. From unexpected challenges to deep societal issues, we all hit rough patches. But with the right tools, like a nice compass, we can build that bounce back mindset to roll with the waves and guide those we serve to do the same. And if you work with people, communities, or fight for systemic change, you're already living. This framework it's not just about personal growth. It's about amplifying your impact as a social change agent. And now, to dive deeper into this, we have an incredible guest. First, let's set the stage. Today, we're exploring 3 pillars for driving lasting change: co-creation, shared value, and sustainability, with someone who not only talks the talk in a beautiful and captivating way, but also walks the walk. It's my honor to introduce a fierce leader, a scholar passionate about social justice, a champion for community-driven change, and someone I consider family, Miss Busisiwe Madikizela. I will now stop talking so that Busi can tell us a little bit about herself, including some things that bring you joy and excitement. The floor is yours, Busi, and welcome to LIVIN Fridays.
Thank you so much, Jacob. I'm so honored to be here. We were talking off camera earlier on to say, we had scheduled this interview earlier on in the year, and I think the gods of timing and alignment decided that today would be the best day for us to have this conversation. You're asking about what are my passions and what gives me joy in life. So first of all, I want to set the stage by saying that I am a mom. I'm a single parent, and my daughter Naledi has got cerebral palsy. She was born normal, but I think with the kind of birth that we had, she ended up having cerebral palsy. So it's always my passion to see, and my joy, the greatest joy, to see that she's growing. And in her growing, she's actually defying all of the standards and all of the limitations that we had been told that she would not be able to overcome. So my deepest passion and joy in life is my daughter. Then secondly, and this was my first joy before my daughter came along, was working with communities. I'm not sure if your guests are familiar with South Africa and the geographical or geopolitical like setup in South Africa. So when I say I'm a suburban girl, I grew up in the Transkei and was part of the family of the up and coming middle class, black middle class. So I stayed in the suburbs, and my experience with other populations and other different black communities that were less fortunate than I was very limited growing up until I started working for the South African Revenue Services. And that experience took me to the borders of Lesotho, where I actually started seeing that there's a lot that Black people, particularly women, go through that is not that a spotlight is not shown on. And I was very fortunate because, the cost of living was a little bit high because the town that I stayed in was a predominantly white town. And so the politic of the day was to make sure that the property market was not accessible for somebody like me coming from middle black middle class family. And so I got the opportunity to really stay in what we call in South Africa the townships or the location, and actually be able to understand and see and get a real feeling of what real life in South Africa is, even post 1994. So my first passion, which then got bumped down to second passion, was working with these communities. Literally just fundraising to be able to make soup in the winter for old age homes. And there was just such a disparity between Black old age homes and white old age homes, which were geographically located in either the town, the small town that I stayed in, or the location or township. So there was this disparity, and a part of the work that I then mobilized to do was to raise funds to make these soup kitchens. And after a while, after coming into a deep reflection and a deep understanding of what it is that I wanted to do academically with my life, I decided to go and study social work. And at that point, a different kind of journey, which now stands on the pillars of co-creation, value co-creation, shared value, and sustainability, or encompassing the sustainable development goals then began. So basically, yes, that's that. And then obviously, I think this is an overarching kind of it's neither first or last, but it's an overarching part of me that brings me real joy and grounding, and is my real passion, is understanding that I am a spiritual soul being that is walking a human experience. And so in my connectivity with spirit, I think it's very important to note that I am a traditional healer with two parts of traditional healing and the journey of praying for people. And so that's another part of me that actually intertwines with everything that I do, and not necessarily being a first or last kind of list of things that bring me joy and that I'm passionate about. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, that is you, and that's something that's interwoven, that side of you of healing into everything that you do, and every conversation that you have. I have experienced that, and that's why I said at the beginning that I consider you family, because you know I know that you're coming from a space of genuine love and genuine care, and you want to see yourself grow and you want to see other people grow. And that's something that's family, that's true friendship. And that's something I value so much in you. So thank you, Busi. And your passion for life and social impact, yeah, it always gets me super fired up. And it's clear that your work embodies the living philosophy. And to kick things off, let's dive right into the heart of that first stage, that first thing of co-creation. As we mentioned earlier, co-creation isn't just about working alongside the community. It's about weaving their voices, experiences, and wisdom into every step of the process. It's about truly listening and approaching challenges with genuine inquiry. Busi, I know you have been a champion of co-creation throughout your career. Can you share a story where this approach was pivotal to finding success? How did you
All right.
ensure everyone felt heard and valued? How do you gain trust and navigate when true collaboration is tough? And then lastly, was there a time when you had to change course based on feedback? And what was your inner compass to guide you back to success?
Very enthusiastic about this question and interjecting before you even finish.
I
I
love
want
it.
to first start off. I want to start off first by just outlining briefly, very briefly, the concept of value co-creation. This is a concept that I have discovered in as a theory. It's a concept that I've discovered in my PhD studies that I'm currently undertaking with the University of Forte. And part of the colleagues who have brought it to my attention, notably Professor Willie Chinyamurindi, who writes about value co-creation with his colleagues, talks about it as something that when you enter a community, you are not assuming that you are the expert of what the community needs or the expert of the community problems. And this is a philosophy and principle that is embedded in um, social work values and social work principles. And by the way, everyone, I am a social worker by profession, but I interact with all of the colleagues in different faculties and different departments because that's part of how I gain growth and I gain understanding about my world and the people that are around me. So going back and after having digressed to this concept of value co-creation, it's this assumption that you are not the expert of what communities need or what communities want. You get in as a person with a set of tools and a set of skills, and you place yourself in a position that is not infringing on people's understanding of their world, their concept of their uh, um, dignity, and their concept of who they are, how they see themselves in the world. You get in to position yourself to say, hey, listen, I'm here with something that you might need, very tentatively, might need. How can we work together so that we are able to place you at the center of what's going on and help you lead a space, because this is your community and you know better than I do what it is that you need and what it is that you would want to see happening for yourselves. It's very interesting. It's a business administration concept, but it is at the heart of exactly what social workers are meant to be doing, particularly when they are in spaces where the community work or the community development intervention model is being utilized. You tentatively get into a community. You have this knowledge that you have, but you are not the expert of everybody, nor are you the expert of the community that you're getting into. If you come in very tentatively with an understanding that we could dovetail and pivot at any point because the community is looking for specific tools that can allow them to grow, and maybe what I have is not necessarily what they need. So that then creates value for the people that you're serving. And very often, and I've worked in such projects where I have been guilty of, and I mean, you're young, you're a social worker. It's about sale of skills and being able to make a living, and you're not really interrogating and doing reflective work to say, am I actually doing what it is that I is right for the next person? Sorry, even in a space where you think you are helping. So in these projects, you find that already there is a project plan. There are deliverables that need to happen. There's already been a problem that has been identified, and you need to get in there, do stakeholder engagement, and implement, because somebody has to be reported to and told that so many people have benefited from the philanthropic money that has been put into this community. And that doesn't always work. Most of the times, there's resistance from communities because they feel that they are being what I called white Jesus. They are being rescued. People do not want to be rescued. People don't want some philanthropic money coming from the global north parachuting into their small communities somewhere in the Eastern Cape to be, you know, rescued. People want to know that they exist. And how they know that they exist is when you understand that they can think for themselves, they can speak for themselves. And that in social work, we call giving people their dignity, right? So they want to be part of conversations, the roundtable conversations that start from what is our problem? What is it that we actually need? And how can we even help ourselves? Because we come in with an assumption that people don't know how to help themselves. And that is a very dangerous assumption because there is so much indigenous knowledge and indigenous knowledge systems in these communities. And some people don't want this modernization or expediting modernity in their communities. They want to have the slow pace. And I think a lot of people, even in the global north, are moving towards living off the grid, taking it easy because of the stresses and the mental health problems that we see recurring and becoming a major problem in our lives. So value co-creation from a theoretical point of view to experiences that I've had in the work that I've done looks like that. Sorry, I'm recovering from a cold, Jay. You know, I've been telling you on WhatsApp that Naledi and I have been sick, but we're in recovery now. Nevertheless, just to go back to the question where you were talking about how has the value co-creation worked in the projects that I've worked in. I want to take note of beautiful group of colleagues that I worked in within a multidisciplinary team. I found myself managing a multidisciplinary team in Port Elizabeth once for an organization that deals with HIV and public health management. And in the team, first of all, were very old colleagues, extremely old colleagues in their late 70s. All the way even to like 65. I had a unit that actually had colleagues of that age group, so you talk to ageism. And then they also were in the nursing profession. These professions are similar, social work, nursing, but actually they're very much different because of, we work with the same client. A client that might be seen by a nurse might be seen by a social worker. And so communities see us being very similar, but we actually are very different. And it also had professional social workers. It was the first time that I was working with other professionals. I had always worked with people who would be lesser qualified than I am. And so I had a different management style for those people versus the people that I found myself having to work with in this particular project. who were professional social workers. And of course, I had what we call in South Africa enrolled nurses. These are assistant nurses and assistant social workers. And I also had to build a administrative team with finance and some training and, those kind of issues. So I actually had a fully fledged office. Normally with these projects, you would have an implementation team and report everything to your head office. But I had a fully fledged team that I first of all had to build from scratch and then had to figure out how to manage. And I found out later that the management style that I employed is called the round table management style, where and I mean, with that management style, it that kind of framework allows for value co-creation to exist. And I found myself drawing from people's experience in terms of age. I mean, I was much younger then. It's very difficult sometimes to manage, especially in the African culture, because we're big on ageism. People who are older, even if they have to report to you, sometimes it becomes very difficult and a little bit uncomfortable to work with such people because there is that issue of ndimdala, I'm older than you,
Mhm.
So at a very critical time when a community had indicated that we had not followed a specific process, the value co-creation principle kicked in, where I had just 3 months prior to this incident found myself learning from the University of Experience and Age with the professional nurses that I worked with, who had guided me and advised me on how to manage the unit, on how to write standard operations procedures for this unit. You must remember, I'm a social worker in a public health management space, managing professional nurses. And I could not, even if I had decided at that point to go and study nursing, I wouldn't have been able to have that kind of experiential knowledge that they gave me. And with that, when this incident came out, having applied these standard operations procedures and worked with the implementation team tirelessly every Friday, reflecting on what they had done. So it's reflective work. That's what we call it, social work, and introspective work, and then training. So this was a Friday routine that we did. It became clear that there was some kind of a misunderstanding of what it is, or combined with an assumption that this might not have been done, this particular procedure might not have been done. The support, Jacob, that I got, I mean, when you allow yourself to walk a path with someone or with colleagues or with a community, when things like these come up, when a problem arises, you are amazed at how people just rally around you. I'm not an Eastern Cape girl, per se. I was born in the Eastern Cape. And obviously with the geopolitical history of the Eastern Cape, you've got Eastern Cape and, towards your East London's separated by the Kai River. So the cultures are not that so much the same. And particularly when you haven't grown in the space, you lose the sort of, how do you relate to the people of your own tribes and stuff.
Mhm.
And so I mentioned this because I hadn't really stayed in the Eastern Cape up until I started that project. And it's almost like being the prodigal son, coming back home and working in the space, and then having a problem that people just rally around you, not because they're afraid they're going to lose their jobs, but because you have positioned yourself to help them understand that they are the experts of the space, and you've clothed them in dignity. And that kind of the returns of that are just tremendous. That was the most humble space that I've ever been in, and the most grateful that I've ever been, to know that I had all of the support and to have people who were just so ready to make sure that we were able to solve the problem when departments were, washing their hands. We don't know this organization. They've never come to us. And suddenly you feel like you're all by yourself on something akin to Robben Island. And these people build a bridge for you to walk on. And the trust that comes with that on both ends is just tremendous. So for me, that was what value co-creation did for me within that project. It's very amazing that all of this is, you have retrospective understanding after the fact. And I guess this is part of what a PhD study does. It helps you reflect deeply and introspect. And when you start reading and you start going, excavating, you realize, wow, I've actually had these kind of experience. They're part of the journey that I've walked when a theory then comes up and supports what it is that you've done. So yeah, that is my story around value co-creation.
Oh man, I mean, such rich dialogue, beautiful stories, and really you touched on every single element of this living philosophy, and I want to start with listening and inquiry, and with being that source that comes in, with just the goal of listening and learning. You want, that um, it's not going to be nothing. You can't put a simple solution on complex societal issues, and I think that is a shift that that I've seen, trending in a positive direction, is not coming with solutions. And for me, one thing that really helped me, and this is, when thinking about dignity and co-creation and value co-creation, I think back to my time as a teacher, and one of the best pedagogies that I ever encountered and implemented was culturally responsive teaching. And that is where your classroom is the community. You engage with the students, you learn about where they're from, and you bring that in to the curriculum to provide a more relevant and authentic education. And as you said, that is the bridge to trust, and being trusted, and potentially building credibility in a new community, and having, once you have that foundation that is built, you are sort of that glue in this complex system where you are uh, in the interconnectedness among departments or agencies or sectors. There needs to be that glue that is able to create an environment that you know brings people together, where their voices are heard and valued. And that's how we can start to come together and design solutions that are grounded in the epistemology of that community or that area. And so uh, I'm blown away, and I know that everyone watching will learn so much from that. And so now I'm eager to shift gears a bit and explore one of our mutual favorite concepts of shared value. Because it seems to me, Busi, that finding that sweet spot where everyone benefits is a driving force in your approach. But like with everything, it's not always easy, right? And here's question time. How do you uncover those win-wins? And sometimes win-win-wins. Those areas where your own strengths, goals, and resources intersect with the needs of the community. Is it something you intuitively sense, or does it emerge through a more deliberate process? And can you tell us a project where shared value led to growth for your own work and also had a major impact on others? And lastly, how do you validate the different needs involved while staying true to your mission? Very excited to hear this. Floor is yours, Busi.
And I'm a scholar at heart, so I'll always start with the theory and where it comes from. Particularly because I'd love our listeners to actually go and check these theories out and see if these are things that they have. Because remember, as social scientists, we observe and we theorize. Sometimes we come up with new theories, but these are things that we really need to, sort of immerse ourselves in and learn about. And I'm a scholar at heart, so I'll start there. Shared value, and also I want to say maybe the way that I think as a social worker is also influenced by the fact that I did a short stint at the university, at the Technikon of the Free State. It was called the Technikon of the Free State. Today it's called the Central University of Technology in Bloemfontein, Central South Africa. And I did a short stint and I was not able to graduate from that diploma because I had different, monetary issues and whatever. And I left and I went to work. But I think it was centered, or it was hosted in the business administration faculty. And so it was a BTech taxation. And some of the subjects that we did was business management, cost and management accounting, all of these things that have got to do with business. So I think as a social worker, I come with a very different kind of perspective. Yes, I'm hosted now in the social sciences and humanities, but I come with a very a dexterity that most social workers don't come with in the space of social work, particularly in South Africa. I will speak for South Africa, not any other country, because that's the country that I'm the expert of, at least in my profession. So the concept of shared value was introduced again by me by a dear colleague, Dr. Talifani Kubana. He comes from Venda. And he wrote his PhD with the Nelson Mandela University. And he was talking about the concept of shared value within our mining industry as a way of catalyzing economic growth for communities that are around mining plants, if you like. Sorry. And his kind of introducing me to the concept of shared value then led me to adopt it for my own, PhD in the social sciences. So although it's a business administration concept, I am moving with it into the social sciences and giving it adaptability in that space, particularly because it is juxtaposed, or it is a concept that is in direct competition, if you like, with the CSI community. CSR?
CSR, yeah.
What is the acronym?
Corporate social
Corporate
responsibility.
social responsibility, yes. So a lot of the business administration, scholars, the newer social, rather scholars in the business administration space are talking to replacing corporate social responsibility with shared, or the creation of shared value. This in South Africa, this is how CSR translates. An organization will, or whoever will apply for this funding. It's normally earmarked by each company that we will work with these communities, or they are, let us say, a banking institution has people that are staying in a specific geographical area, and they use these consumers use a lot of these banking tools that are offered to them by this banking institution. And so there's a small and a pot of money to do something like, okay, let's buy, a community member can apply and let's buy the children some shoes. It's winter time. Or let's quickly go and paint the school. Or maybe the school is, so it's an application, a lengthy application process, and it's a little pot of probably less than $1 million. And then Mandela Day comes and it's like, oh, let's now go, and there are celebrities that are coming and they've applied for this money and they are riding down to a specific school in the deep rural spaces of KZN, and they're going to have a soup kitchen for the day. So it's not sustainable. It's not a sustainable concept. It's like, here's a little pot of money. We are, yes, checking, ticking the check boxes. So the creation of shared value is around sustainability. It's a sustainability proposition where we are saying, you are a company, and normally you are, and I will use the Kruger National Park as one of my examples, just to explain the concept of shared value, of the creation of shared value, where the Kruger National Park it's a game reserve that is within communities, right? So this whole issue even of having separate pieces of land that are boxing in animals for the entertainment of people and for the viewing of people for money at the end of the day for the people who own that land is actually, yeah, it's another issue on its own for another day. But when this has happened, communities have been either taken out of those spaces that have been part of the indigenous land there, or they become poor because they are not allowed now to move and interact with the environment in the way that their forefathers had been doing. And so they become poor and there's no sustainability in their lives. But the owners of the land who've bought the land and who have this game, and who's, people getting to the gate and paying money to come and see this, all of this, are making money. Now, the concept of the creation of shared value in those spaces is that when there are private lodges and there are different things being done, that the very communities become part of the procurement process. So it's not about the communities applying for funding. I want to do this in a school. I want to paint that. I want to buy shoes. We assume that communities have got value, and we assume that we have got value. So our value is rooted in the fact that we've got needs that the communities could service us with. So instead of us going to Johannesburg to get paper for printing, we capacitate the community members with the skill, and then in turn, we use them as our service provider. So it becomes a value chain thing that is literally, a never-ending story, That is the creation of shared value. So I said with co-creation, we assume that community members are the experts of the space that they are in, right? They've got the value, and we can co-create a space together. The concept of shared value is, we know that you've got this value and we can upskill you and then use you as our sustainable partners so that your families are, it even goes beyond to say within with employees, for example, within the creation of shared value concept, employees' children are able to be taken to school because the employees have got shares within, the company. They have part ownership of this company, and they're able to then, have these gifts that keep on giving. That's the creation of shared value, right? And in my experience, it came in such an unexpected, form, because we had a skills development officer. Her name is Noma Africa. She has a beautiful kind of, it almost feels like a magic that she has of seeing the in-between spaces in how she does her work. And she recognized that I was a social worker, but working in the public health space. And although they were giving, she had the responsibility of looking for funding and training pharmacists, assistant pharmacists in this organization. She made the connection to say we could train what we call what you could call assistant social workers. It's called auxiliary social workers and child and youth care workers in South Africa. And she made it a point to put out fillers and see if there was funding with the health and wellness SETA. And when she realized that that funding could be available to us, she called me in and she said, could you train these people? These are people that I was working with in this particular project who worked in schools facilitating a prevention program for young people, particularly I think in grade 12 or from grade 9 to grade 12. And, it became clear that we had the capacity, we could share our value with these young people who at the time, Jacob, were earning 1,800 Rand. Do the conversion. How many dollars is that per month? Is it not under the poverty line? I'm going to wait so that we can tell our listeners how much that was.
That's $98.22.
Per month. Per month. Now I want you to do a conversion of 15,000 Rand for me and keep it handy for me as I continue with the story. So she then made the whole link, and I remember the very last documents that we were going to sign. She was doing the very last checks with us, and a couple of other managers. And I was in the car, and my car fortunately had a hands-free set. So I was doing the deal in the car to say, we will train these people. Back at the ranch, I've got professional social workers. I had about 6 of them. And they had the capacity, because we are allowed as professional social workers to train people who have a lower qualification as us, but who are within the social services professions in terms of mentorship. Back at the ranch, I had to now convince these social workers to say, guys, we could do this. This is something that we could leave as a legacy for these young people, about 36 of them. And eventually I got their buy-in, and each of us the 6 of us had these 36 young women divided amongst us for the social auxiliary qualification and the child and youth care qualification. And so how the creation of shared value happened there is that using our academic knowledge, our experience and expertise, and collaborating with our internal stakeholders in this organization, we were able to then utilize the project as a base for training, not just for beneficiaries outside or that had been earmarked by the donor, get a different stream of funding coming in to train our people in a year program that then escalated them to a position of earning 15,000 Rand a month. And that is because of that qualification. As long as there are projects, as long as there are organizations that need people with that qualification, that's the standard amount that they would be negotiating on for their salaries. Mm. Now, how much is 15,000 Rand a month?
It's right around $820, $818.50. So huge.
I think that's a decent living. That's a huge jump. And it's a sustainable jump. It's a gift that keeps on giving. Mm-hmm. You have this qualification, you are able to build on it, even if you don't build on it for a lifetime, as long as we are having people who need this kind of service, you get to negotiate a salary at that level.
Mm. No, I mean...
So, and it wasn't really about me, it was a team effort. It really was a team effort. The creation of shared value is not about one individual. It's a team effort, but it's about being able to see the in-between spaces. And instead of looking at a one-hit wonder kind of intervention, looking at how this can be sustainable over time. So yes. That was that.
No, I mean, wow, we had some amazing, like, I love how you start with theory. I think deep down, I'm still an academic at heart, and it's always good to really, because I think there's a lot of ways to describe the same phrases or same concepts. And I've learned that a lot about collective impact. There's a lot of different ways to describe and define collective impact. And shared values, to me, it's the only path forward, and it's the path to sustainability. And I always can go back to teaching and the classroom as a great example. um Especially with this generation, there has to be a belief by the younger generation, that their word and their ideas are being valued and being included, and they can see their impact. And so taking, it's like you're playing the long game, but taking a wider look and broadening your horizons, stepping outside of your bubble to take in other perspectives and listen and talk and bring people together. And like I said, in when we were talking about co-creation, it really takes a special individual to create that type of environment. Not only create it, but maintain it and sustain that environment. And so hearing all those stories, it's really beautiful to hear that you've created so many different pockets of shared value across sectors. And one thing, among listening and inquiring and validating, and navigating, like the one thing I think is most important is initiating and taking action. And I think in shared values, you have to be that one to step up, bring people together for that initial conversation where those values and can be brought to the table and discussed and made into a path that can lead to sustainable impact. And
That's right.
sort of this ties in, sort of a broken record to a certain degree, but we know that real change isn't a one and done deal. It's about creating solutions that last, that evolve, and most importantly, like what you said, that adapt. That's what sustainability truly means. It's about making sure the impact you create today continues to flourish tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that. And that takes resilience, a long-term vision, and a whole lot of navigation through the unexpected. So Busi, in our last sort of segment, I want to talk about sustainability. And I know your work is deeply rooted in the idea of sustainability. Can you describe a time when you faced a major setback or challenge that threatened the long-term success of a project? And how did you use those skills of being able to adapt to find a new path forward and stay true to your vision? How do you build sustainability into your projects, or life from the start? Whether it's securing resources, fostering local ownership, or designing programs that can adapt to changing circumstances, your insights are so important, and I'd love to hear them. And on a personal level, how do you cultivate that resilient spirit? What practices or mindsets help you bounce back from obstacles and inspire others to do the same?
All right, so I'm going to then take it inwards when we talk to sustainability, because there is a project that when we get these opportunities and these platforms that we don't talk about, and that is the project of me, the project of you, the individual, and your own life story and your own journey. Somebody called our generation the gig generation. In other words, we move in spaces not for like the baby boomers who had one job and then it was a lifetime, and then you accumulate pensions, and it's, you're on your pension and you're traveling and it's all la-da-da, it's happy. I think the way that we have, as a society, as the world, we have dealt with our environment and the issue of consumerism and capitalism has led my generation and your generation, Jane, to what we call the gig economy, where you bounce from job to job. And you sometimes feel like, wow, if I don't own a house at my age, and my parents already owned a house, had 5 children at my age, were taking children to private school and doing this and doing that, what am I doing in life? You know, and that can be really, it can really feel like you don't have a continuum. You don't have sustainability in how you think, in terms of how your vision is, but actually there's a broader macro, you know, driver, which is the political space that we find, the socio-political space that we find ourselves in. So recently, talking about sustainability and intersecting with building resilience, I found myself being in a project that suddenly I was told, there is no more funding for your project and we will let you go. So now you find yourself having to go back to the drawing board, reapply. And sometimes it's really about, you know, I need to just find the next fix, the next job, the next gig. It's not necessarily, you're not even thinking about, is this aligned to my life purpose? Is this aligned to what I'm on this earth to do? Am I getting a specific satisfaction from what I'm applying for or doing? Am I reacting or responding to the situation? And those things can really affect somebody's mental health. They can really affect how you move in spaces. And I think if it were not for my daughter Naledi being there and just having the presence of mind to be present for her, I don't think I myself would be sitting here today, because when that call came, it was like a bucket of ice water without the ice, but at freezing temperature. Can you imagine a liquid that is so cold, but it doesn't have the ice? So when it hits you, it doesn't hit you and you fall and you faint. It hits you and you're gasping for air. You can't breathe. And this was on the heels of having sat in a board meeting and being told, we are making this person permanent in your team, we are doing this, we are doing that. And then come beginning of the year, we don't have funding for you. Sorry, goodbye. And that was that. And that was the nature of how the NGO sector is. And for a lot of people within the NGO sector in South Africa, that is how our experiences have been, finding ourselves really just hanging onto a thread of a lifeboat and trying to apply and trying to make ourselves more viable for the market. And what compounds this issue is the fact that in South Africa, and I recently just connected the dots, that at 35, opportunities close. So if you haven't figured your life out by 35, and most of us haven't, funding opportunities close, funding opportunities close, work opportunities close, because I think also with the boom, particularly in Africa, the boom of the population, and this, I mean, our generation is like, if you had to do a population map, the age group, let's say 18 to 45, is like, it's bloated, it's big. And we are seeing that the older age group is becoming smaller because people are retiring and they're dying and so on and so forth, natural processes of life. So now you are in this space and you're thinking, what am I going to do with myself? How am I going to overcome this? And I applied, Jay, I don't know how many job interviews that I did. And I got rejected. And I started doubting myself. I started doubting who I was and where I've been coming from. And so eventually my brother intervenes and tells my mother, fortunately, I'm one of those girls who still has 3 brothers who check in every now and then on her and their niece. And, we are a tight-knit enough family for when there's a red flag and somebody picks it up, we still have a mom that we can still, grab on as a lifeboat. So I found myself going home in June of 2022, 2021. And I was so fortunate, Jay, that at that particular time, and I think part of the things that were very helpful was the online platforms that I occupied. where I suddenly was found by people who wanted to work with me. I was like, I'm now being found. And that is in how I've curated my LinkedIn profile and how I have positioned myself on LinkedIn. Sometimes you do volunteer work. I'm still volunteering even now with an organization called the Young Social Workers Network. We these are initiatives that don't necessarily bring anything to the table except for fulfillment of spirit. And you get found, and I found myself working for an organization led by very generous woman, Dr. Dlamini, Triple C Advisory. And we I my expertise and skills when you talk to sustainability around young women and girls programs were sought after by the United Nations, and I got brought in as an expert a researcher in the space, and that sustained me for a year. But within that very same year, I was very lucky that in our conversations with Dr. Dlamini, I was able to be mentored. And therein, I found what I now call my purpose, a purpose-driven life, where I have an understanding of why the things that I've chosen. We go through life sometimes when you talk to sustainability, doing activities, and we don't know what are the connecting, what is the golden thread that connects these activities. And I think a very talented and very gifted kind of mentor or life coach is able to then help you draw an overarching goal or an overarching understanding of my purpose in life is. And I, oh, I haven't opened this in a while now, and I've changed laptops, so I didn't think I was going to talk about this, but these kinds of things come when you're in these spaces. So yeah, I don't want to search for it now, but the what she made me realize is that my overarching goal in life is to help others reach their full potential. Now, if you look back to the stories that I've been talking about, each of the activities that I've done is literally bump somebody from point B where they are to Z. That has been, I just had not been able to articulate it. I hadn't been able to see that is what I was doing. And she helped me see that. And that helped me to rebuild my confidence. It helped to find where my self-worth, because it was me and my self-worth, and my self-worth was slowly moving away from frame. And when that happened, when I started having conversations with her on a monthly basis, I started what I call the journey towards myself. And when you start walking towards yourself, you create sustainable spaces where your resilience is forever renewed, because you know what you're here for. So even when you lose a job, you lose a spouse, you lose a child, and I've lost all of the above in my short lifetime, you realize though that your life is worth living, because God has put you on this earth to move a person from point B, because you can't assume that you're moving them from point A. That would be assuming that they are at ground zero, and nobody's ever at ground zero. Nobody's ever at ground zero. Even at a point where they think they want to commit suicide, for example, there still is a point B in that person's life. So moving them from point B to point Z is what my life purpose has been. And as a result, I've been able to carve out practical goals for my life, in my academic space, in my career, in my love life, in my spiritual life, in my life with my daughter, and be able to build those aspects of my life. But I know that in different areas of my life where my life intersects with other people, that is what my life purpose is. So that is my story of sustainability. I don't want to take it to sustainable development goals, which is one of the things, which is the actual pillar that, my academic study is based on. I wanted to bring it home because these are concepts that we might think are out there. They are part of the world organizations and the, development organizations, but actually when these organizations talk about them, they are talking to the micro person. We just are being, we find ourselves having to grapple with these concepts at a macro and geopolitical, sociopolitical space.
Mm.
So yeah.
I'm so grateful that you did take it inward, and you know, I was, as I was taking down notes, you know, what I've found personally is I felt like for a lot of my life I was sort of coasting, and I was in that gig economy and going from gig to gig, and when I discovered my purpose and really discovered it, you know, with you, and uh, you know, that has been my compass, and something that has helped even more is gratitude, is just accepting everything as a lesson and being grateful for the good and the bad and everything in between, because walking in my purpose and walking with gratitude, uh, has has allowed me to you know, be immovable in terms of my purpose. And if I run into a wall, I either find a way around or dig under or jump over. But that purpose and gratitude is, and drive is pushing me forward. And you know, I've learned a lot of these lessons that you spoke about, um, in our conversations, and that's why I'm so grateful that everyone else got to experience, um, some of your wisdom and experience. And uh, yeah, I just want to thank you, Busi, for sharing your incredible journey and insights. Your resilience, adaptability, and unwavering commitment to sustainability are truly inspiring. It's clear how the living philosophy, listening, inquiring, validating, initiating, and navigating, has guided your work in creating lasting change. This is a testament to the power of these principles, not just for personal growth, but also for transforming communities and society. But the work doesn't stop here. It's an ongoing journey, a relay race where we pass the baton of progress from one generation to the next, taking me back to my old track and field days. And that's where you come in. Yeah, you out there. Now more than ever, the world needs passionate change agents like Busi. People who are willing to listen, inquire, validate, initiate, and navigate the complexities of social issues. Here's how you can join the movement: partner with or become a member of a social work organization. Your skills, your passion, and your resources can make a real difference. Support projects that foster sustainable growth and empowerment, externally and internally. Your contribution, big or small, can have a ripple effect. And another thing is follow Busi's work and amplify her voice. Share her story, engage with her on social media, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, and help spread her message of hope, change, co-creation, shared values, and sustainability. Let's keep the momentum going, folks, because together we can build a world that's more just, more equitable, and more living. Any final words of wisdom, Busi?
Just to say that the story is, you hold the hand to writing that story, and when you decide to put the pen down is when that story ends. As long as you still have the pen between your fingers, you have the potential to write and rewrite and change your own story.
Yes, and I'm evidence of that, and that is such an important lesson to think about deeply. And as we wrap up this episode of LIVIN Fridays, I really hope y'all are feeling inspired to step into your own power as change makers. Remember, it all starts with listening to those around you, inquiring with curiosity, validating the challenges and successes, initiating those brave steps forward, and navigating the inevitable ups and downs. By embracing this living philosophy, you can not only build a life you love, but also contribute to a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. Thank you again, Busi, for joining us and for reminding us of the incredible impact we can have when we come together with purpose. And to everyone watching, thank you for tuning in to LIVIN Fridays. Remember, change starts with you and the LIVIN philosophy as your guide. The possibilities are endless. Have a great weekend and see y'all next time.